Hello, and welcome back to the Brick and Easter Broadcast Network, and happy Halloween. And as you can see, I am here with my buddy Grant, also known as Royal Bricks 503. PT is on vacation today because he's celebrating Halloween with his family, and really, really excited to have today's show because Grant also knows our guests really well. So we might even get some inside information. So, and Grant has been on the show before. Tell our friends a little bit about yourself.
Howdy. So I don't even know what to say here. Yes, we are. Yes, Debo, it is full on festive over here.
Full on festive. It's Halloween.
Absolutely. As we may have sounds on my end of.
Are you doing the gunshots? Is that what that is?
It wasn't, but it is now.
Okay. We adapt here on the Brick and Easter Broadcast Network. So so tell us a little about yourself. I know you are now part of the Port Lug leadership, recently elected. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, been in the community. Well, been out of my dark ages since 2013. Been in the community kind of on Instagram and all the things for the past 4 years now. So now been a part of Port Lug also that 4 years. Now also on the leadership of Port Lug. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Woohoo! And I was mentioning to Grant before the stream started, I am still in the process of moving. I have some of my things together, and I just found my on-air sign. So we are on the air. We are really live. And we have today, because PT is out, I'm going to be running the slideshow, and that's part of what the technical difficulty was before we started. I was like, wait a minute, I can't see this. It's like, that's okay. We got it covered. You can see it. That's all that matters.
Yes.
And we have two amazing guests who are joining us as well, who are also contestants from season 4. You saw them, and in their glory of building boats, please help me welcome to the stream. We have Brad and Mike, also known as Brad Bergman and Mike Tarrant. And really, wow, you're a disco ball today. Goodness. Wow, shiny.
I have to take the helmet off, though, because it's a little tight.
Oh, okay.
We're glad to go to the rain.
Well, we're all really festive. We hope people in the audience are festive as well, because it's a party. It's a party today, and we are going to be also working on reviewing LEGOMasters Season 4, Episode 5, as many of you know, which was talk about a circus and a fun time, right? I mean, this was the best day to do that review of that episode. I was thinking about that we didn't know what the episodes were. And then I had reached out to Brad and Mike. And by the way, that opening sequence that you saw with those digital sig figs, thank you, Brad. Your talent is amazing.
I'm so happy to share that.
If you looked closely, the one that I had the megaphone, and Brad actually had a really great suggestion because I was using one of those cones for my megaphone. And he said, they have a megaphone utensil. So it's like, oh, okay, let's do that. And he also has me with my mouth open and my mouth closed. So you can see if you watch the sequence, go back and watch the video. You'll see I open my mouth every now and then as if I'm talking into the megaphone, which is really cool. And Debo Brick says, hello, Brad and Mike. Welcome to the BDN.
Thanks. I think this is our second time on, or it's our first time on, but we've been watching all. No,
it's the first time we've had you as guests on the show, because we wanted to have you, I think, maybe a little earlier, but you insisted you wanted me to be on the show because it was the episode where I knew I was going to be out of town because I was at Disneyland that day.
Yeah, and originally we were trying to coordinate the first episode review, and that was the one that we went home. So it's a little weird now reviewing an episode that we weren't on. So we don't have a lot of the backstage, back behind the scenes information. So hopefully some of our contestants who are in the chat will be able to fill us in on some of that. I asked them for some of the dish, but I think they want to share it themselves.
Oh, of course.
Speaking of, we have Lewis saying, Is it Halloween? No, this is Brad's normal attire. Come on.
No, it's not Halloween. We just dress like this all the time.
Did you dress up as a teacher today?
I actually wore this hat on Barbie Day because it's the only thing I have that's pink. And that's why if you look at my profile on Facebook, you'll see that I've got this pink hat. And it's been on my profile for like 2 months now.
Barbie can be anything she wants to be.
I'm going to change it tomorrow. Yeah. Because people have been saying, you're still wearing that Halloween hat. I go, yeah, but it's not Halloween yet.
So tomorrow you can put your Santa hat on.
Yeah. And just so everybody knows that if we do have visitors coming in, every now and then we may pop in and out of the stream because of that. So
we'll have some candy left over.
And welcome back, Mike. It sounds like you had some trick-or-treaters.
We did.
Yes.
We were expecting a couple of them tonight.
Yeah. And that's why we're just forewarning the chat. Yeah, there may be some times where some of us pop in and out for that. But anyway, your point, though, Brad, about even though you had, only been on the show for the one episode, I mean, your background and the experience of being on the show is still something that many of us will never have a chance to experience. So it's really an honor that you were on the show and you got to meet all these amazing people and got to be really good friends with them.
Yeah, we have no regrets maybe from going home on the first episode, but no regrets about what involvement we did have with the show. It was great. And after seeing the kitten episode, I was really sad that we weren't there for it. And then the volcano episode, I was really sad we weren't there for it.
Yeah.
And then
so my question, my real question, is there an episode you were happy you missed?
The next episode 4 with the sound. Mike and I kind of both looked at each other and we said, this one might have sunk us if we'd gone that far. It was a really challenging challenge considering what you had to do with it. And we kind of stopped and talked a little bit about it, like, oh, that's a roar, and we would have thought of this thing to do. Mm-hmm. But some of those sounds, I think the clock that Sam and Nina did was a brilliant way to kind of visualize that sound, and the way they had the pendulum swinging erratically and the duck or the bird on the floor. I think they actually had a really solid build there and deserved that win.
Yeah.
Very, very true.
So I will preface this before that. So this is this is when you were talking about you leaving and stuff. This is Lewis said, I call BS.
Don't get me started. No.
And I said that before because it was not a comment on them not winning into Golden Brick that time.
Well,
yeah. Oh, gotcha.
It's also interesting because you and I have had a conversation because of the exit interviews, because I'm one of the Endemol Shine approved vendors who, can interview you after the exit, the exit interviews. But I think, too, that during my interview with you, we had talked about a little bit of the background about where BS came from, because BS was prominently on the front of your boat.
Yes.
And so why don't you share with folks about the original name of the ship before you pivoted to BS?
So actually, the BS pivot came with just 3 minutes left in the episode. It was last minute notice. So I'd say about halfway through, I approached the production team asking for legal clearance to use Love Shack, because Mike and I frequently refer to our trailer where we kind of were dating and solidified our relationship. We call it the Love Shack. It's a little place where we got together. And so I wanted to use that on the boat. And luckily, we didn't tile it on both sides. We had left room on the sides to tile more letters if we had the time at the end, which we clearly didn't have. Yeah. So on the front, it had LS as the logo where the VW would normally be on like a VW van. And I totally forgot about it until 3 minutes before the clock was done. And the producer came to us and said, hey, we didn't get clearance for Love Shack. So while we're scrambling to get this dumb boat finished, throw minifigs on, I'm like, shoot. So I pull the L off the front of the boat. And that's also why the B, I noticed, isn't to scale with the S. The B is actually quite truncated, but I was just in such a hurry to make it look like something that wasn't LS, in case, like if Will said, what does Love Shack stand or LS stand for? We can't say Love Shack. So that's where the BS came for. And,
in hindsight, we probably could have taken both letters off, and it would have been kind of the iconic, this looks like a VW van. We would have been fine.
Yeah.
That might
Right.
have been
Maybe.
See, that's a story that not everybody knows, because
Yeah.
I know that story because I asked you the question,
Right.
why did you go with BS on the front of your boat? Because that was, almost like, I'm so sick of this, this bill, we're going to just put this in at the front, but it was really great that you shared that, at least off stream.
And
So I'm really glad you
comment
said that
a couple
again.
more times.
That's our backup story now. Thank you.
And we're sticking to it.
Well, that's great. And the fact that you only had 3 minutes to pivot, that's pretty amazing.
And it's kind of funny because it got cut from the final show too. But when our boat was driving around the lake at the end, and we finally pulled into the corner there, Will goes, "So tell us about the BS, right?" and there was quite a bit more there that got cut out. A number of our friends were just laughing because they think that we introduced the bear concept to the majority of the straight world by.
I was wondering about that too. So since you mentioned it, not everybody knows what bears are in the LGBTQ community. You don't have to elaborate, but let's just say bears, people can look it up. Yeah, both of you are bears.
Not safe either.
Don't look it up at work.
I remember when I watched that episode, I said, OMG, they got away with that. They got away with Bear Shack.
Was not even on our radar. It was just a last minute rescue attempt. Plus, I also, we were talking about it later. I said, a lot of the minifigure parts that we had to work with had those bear heads. So if you actually look at the inside of our build, the party scene, there's a lot of like teddy bear heads on minifigs. So it kind of worked all the way around.
Yeah.
Well, we're really, really excited to have you here. And like I said, even that one episode, you really showed your talent, and it was really great to see you there.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the best I can to share these slides, because normally PT does this. So please forgive me. I did all the construction of this entire PowerPoint deck. And thank you. You haven't even seen it yet. Don't give me accolades yet until you've seen it.
I've built PowerPoint before, so it takes skill. If you've got anything to show, good for you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And there were some things that I was not able to get. For example, the cartoon drawings. We like to usually show the cartoon drawings of each of the builds before we segue into the build. So I'm just going to preface that PT is the master of this.
Well, also, this was a challenging episode too, because even just watching it with the on Fox and Hulu, there's not much to show for all the builds. It's kind of interesting. It was hard to kind of get a concept of the detail that each of these teams put into their their quadrant, let alone the overall work. So I kind of was hoping that
it wasn't until some of the castmates like yesterday started posting some of them, because I'm like, even when they showed them, it was so short.
Yeah.
But I am going to go back for a second. There was a comment from Debo saying, the next friend set, bear rescue.
It'll be a boat.
Isn't there a city set where there's a guy in boxers and a bear chasing a tree? Yeah.
It's one of the police.
Debo, you're too funny. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start sharing this, and I got to put this into this mode. Okay. Right. So I was mentioning I can't see the chat. So what's going to happen is Grant's going to manage the chat, and I'm just going to do all this by ear, and then we'll go through each of the slides. But first of all, I want to thank you again. You can see I put the little credit to you. Digital Sig Figs by Brick-a-Brad. And this was a complete surprise when Brick-a-Brad and Brad had reached out to me and said, hey, do you have a sig fig? And I sent him a photo, and he even asked me, what hair piece is that? And, what are you doing with the utensil or the megaphone? So I'm just so really thankful that you did this. Thank you so much. It was welcome. Really great.
You're welcome. I've been having fun with it.
Yeah. And then, of course, Grant, you look amazing.
I wish that was a real sig fig. Part of it is, but the pants I took from the top. And actually, your top is customized too, Naomi.
Oh, I saw that. You made it a woman's top.
It's a female top version of the plaid shirt. Yeah.
Thank you. I did make a comment that I look like Rosie O'Donnell.
No, let's not go there.
So, but I still think it's cute. It's super cute. So thank you again for doing that. Okay, so here's our opening sequence.
Cirque du
And-
Soleil.
Yeah.
Cirque du Soleil, which has been a lot of fun to just see, that they're bringing in some of these name brands like they brought in last season, how they had NASCAR. So it seems like now they're doing these partnerships with some of these major groups. And Cirque du Soleil was the one for this episode. And here's some of the characters. And it makes me dizzy just looking at their costumes, right? So
Yeah, that would have been a Lego challenge to try and recreate that suit.
yeah.
The
Oh
black
my
and white.
gosh. That suit would be amazing. And these suits are pretty awesome too. So for those of you, spoiler alert, who haven't seen the episode, that these performers from Cirque du Soleil did these amazing tricks on stage. They did backflips. They did, this, in this case, this person is circling around and the guy on the bottom is using his feet to kind of propel him counterclockwise, I think. Yeah, counterclockwise. It's crazy.
Another one where they were flipping them, and I'm just watching how their hands and feet fall, and I'm like, that is like a small mistake away from being very painful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, clearly they have the technique and the practice to do that. And then, and by the way, I should mention these photos came from Endemol Shine. So thank you very much, Endemol Shine, for these amazing photos. So here's the one with the trapeze artist kind of hanging from the ceiling. And again, the acrobatics that happen with a lot of these characters. So it was like a show within a show.
Yeah, exactly. I saw I think I saw one of the first Cirque shows in Los Angeles in the 90s. It was Alegria. And I still love that soundtrack.
I love Alegria.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Alegria is great too. It goes back to storytelling. And if you know about Cirque du Soleil, for those of you who don't know, one of the things that they were very specific about is there would be no animal acts because they thought about the animal cruelty that happens with all of the animals, and that they wanted it to be like a theater experience.
Yeah.
So that all the acrobatics and they had to have clowns too. They didn't mention it in this show, but clowns were necessary. And instead of a 3-ring circus, it was 1 ring with an entire message or theme and costumes and music and all of that. So this whole experience, and that's what I think Will Arnett did not articulate enough, at the very beginning, is just how monumental.
Yeah.
They changed the whole experience of the circus.
Oh yeah.
And there's not a bad seat in the house. If you've ever been to a show, sometimes you'll get behind a tent posts, but it's still so much going on that it's not all centered right in the front.
Yes.
So I highly recommend going to any of their shows if people can get a chance.
Except for if you're a kid and sitting behind me.
Yeah.
my partner and I, we have been dating about a month, and it was about his birthday, and he wanted to go to Cirque, and so we went. So I took him to Cirque for his birthday, and so my partner is quite a bit shorter than I am, and it just happened to be there was a kid sitting right behind me. I'm like, okay, let's switch so the kid does not have to have my head as they're viewing.
Very true. Very true. So how tall are you, Grant?
I'm 6'2", 6'3".
Wow, that's pretty tall.
Yeah. Luckily not that.
So after they were performing, they said, ta-da, this is what we do. And guess what? You get to do similar kinds of challenges. So this time they split them up into 2 super teams. So we have Team Cirque, and as you can see, Aubrey and Ryan on the left, Allison and Melanie, Emily and Kelly, and then Nolita and Paul. And what they did to set up the teams is that they had to pick a random ticket, right, that Will Arnett had at the front.
Yeah.
And the second team was Team Soleil, which, Louis, since you're in the chat, look at that. Look at this photo of all of you. I mean,
That
you
was
guys
my
look
favorite
amazing.
team, Louis.
Yeah.
I mean, Louis, you were talking about, is it Halloween? That's like, you're dressed like a teacher, right? So we have Alex and Louis, we have Sam and Nina, Chris and Robert, and then Poppy and Ben.
There we go.
And you can see Ben was really prepared because he actually put the Team Soleil in the lower right. So it's like, this is our team. The other team, I'll go back a second. They didn't do that.
Oh, they
You
didn't
can
have a
see
chart.
that
Yeah.
Aubrey has it in her
Oh,
hand.
Yep.
It's like, and so does Melanie, but it's like, okay, somebody wasn't queued up properly.
Yep.
But Ben was on it.
And Lewis
So-
says, "We look good."
It does, and Sam looks so festive there, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sam
Not
always has the best
overstated.
shirt. Yeah.
The other comment that Emily made was that Nina was surrounded by the boys,
Yeah.
which I thought was hilarious because in this photo, she's dead center and she's surrounded by all these men. So all these talented men. So really great.
It was almost like back to grade school in gym class, all the boys on one side and all the girls on the other.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I
Old
guess,
school.
I mean, they still had a couple guys on Team Sir.
It's like the Sadie Hawkins dance.
Oh, yeah. That's true. But it was all random, right? As far as the
Yeah.
selection of the tickets.
And then
Actually, I think there
Debo
was a
says,
joke, Debo. I think there was a joke on there about how
Yep.
the judges and Will were Team Do.
"Yes,
Yes,
no,
there
it's
was.
Will was do
Yeah.
I'm
in the middle
stuck
with
in the
do.
center with do.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
That was his joke. You know, if
That
he
was a
wanted
good-
to
I-
sing it, you know, stuck in the center with do.
But
Okay.
they'd have to pay for that probably, and you know,
Right.
That's
Would
true.
you wanna
You're
hear that?
right. You're right. If he sung it, he probably would have had to pay for it.
Yep.
Very true. Oh my gosh. Okay. So here's the
Well,
brief. What was it that these two super teams had to do? So each super team had to build 4 acts based on a theme. So they had to create this theme, and then each pair of the team, of the sub team, I guess, was responsible for one of these acts. So you had a contortionist act, a balancing act, a flying act, a high wire act, and you must use power functions, all within the span of 10 hours.
Now this is every episode so far. I think has been 10 hours, right?
The
think
last
there's
couple
one-
episodes have all been 10 hours, yes.
Was there one that was 12?
There was a 12-hour episode. I want to say
Yeah.
one of the early episodes. Maybe the boat episode was
I think
12 hours.
We were 10. and
No,
the cats
no.
had-
I think it was 2. I think it was the
Episode
second
2?
episode was 12. But
Okay.
everything else has been 10.
Everything else has been 10 hours. Yeah. And it's been interesting, too, that this whole idea of the building of, you know, these 4 acts, but making it cohesive.
Uh-huh.
Each of the super teams took a very different approach.
Volcano was 12 hours.
A volcano was 12 hours. Okay. That would make sense.
Yep. So that makes it. I think that makes us so far. The season 4 is the shortest total hour runtime.
So far.
Right.
So,
Well, we're not sure about total length, though, because
Well, because
they did-
before,
you know, we'll save the spoiler for later, but we had a lot of super teams, and they did mention that of the 2 super teams, whoever wins this challenge, those 4 teams are safe,
right.
and then the other 4 teams would need to, you know, be considered for elimination. So these next set of slides, normally I would start segueing into some of the builds specifically, but they'll be coming later because I don't have the cartoon slides. But this is some preparatory slides of some of the teams at work. And you can see here, Sam and Nina are having a nice little chat with Jamie.
And I did notice too while we were watching it, and I think it's just a necessity of the editing. There's a lot of cutting during those 10 hours. Like at various times at the beginning, like the first half hour of the show, you're seeing some more completed builds. And then in the second half of the show, it seems like they come back to like earlier in the build to talk about certain things. So I found it interesting with Sam, especially because he had to rebuild his mechanics.
Oh, that's right.
His dancers, that it
Mhm.
was hard for me to figure out where they were in the actual 10-hour timeline. And sometimes they do some of that for dramatic purposes, right? But
Yeah.
I still, we kind of need to rewatch it. I still want to try and watch it with a closer eye to what's on his table at the various times they're talking, because I think right
Mhm.
now it's the early, like you can see the pegs sticking up, and
It's very early because also the blue backdrop, you notice all the dark blue bricks that they have a partial backdrop done, but not the full backdrop.
And that was one thing that Team Soleil had, was kind of each quadrant had a unified backdrop and page.
Yep.
Where the other team did more, it was a little more organic, which I think worked for what they were doing theme wise.
Yeah. And I think too that they had some discussion about whether they're using plates or bricks for the backdrop and the transitions, which to me was a little confusing.
I would have been, I would have had some issues there.
Now here's a closer look of the backdrop. As you can see on the back, on the left, Nina's looking at the back of it. So this backdrop was made, there were, I think, four teams, and Sam and Nina worked on the backdrop so that each of the teams would have the same. And then it sounds like Chris was doing the mechanics for a lot of the different teams too.
So they kind of talk about how they split the tasks up.
So they said that it was the mechanics, but a lot of the times I'm seeing actually Chris working on kind of the mechanics of the banner, that
Yes.
ran, and that actually I think to me is the most underrated part of that build, was how it was so rounded. They had I want to see that mechanism that made that rounded.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be nice. They're going to be on our show in 2 weeks. So I might even ask them ahead of time if they can, show us a little bit more about how they did that.
There is so much to ask them about how they did things.
I know. I was going to say, but I think the other part that was hilarious, and this next slide is actually good because it kind of shows you Christopher's evil look, is that he's putting, oops, not this one. Sorry. This one's where he's talking with Will and Robert right before.
You can see that center in the middle area.
Yeah, and the center is beautiful. That centerpiece, and I think that was actually built by Ben. And then Ben was also putting a sun and moon on each of those little, circle areas.
All right, I'm gonna interrupt this because we do have Lewis kind of explaining for us here.
Oh, yes.
So everyone did their own mechanics, though we consulted with each other, and then. What we all share was the common elements like the backdrop, columns, ring around the front, and the figures.
Right. Oh, okay.
So what I saw was that the rounding was being made by Chris, and then it looked like Ben was doing all of the sun, the moon, and stars making. So yeah.
Maybe. I mean, Lewis, maybe you can confirm, but I thought Ben and Poppy were actually doing the rounded part for all of them.
Yeah.
And the show seemed to suggest that in one of the cuts, they were talking about how
it said Chris was doing
all the mechanical stuff for each stage.
Yeah.
I know that showed them later the others individually working, but they also kind of highlighted how Ben was bouncing around to all the other builds and not focusing on his own.
Or Sam,
Right.
Sorry, Sam. Yeah. And that caused some of the difficulty when he found out the mechanics weren't working. So it's kind of
working for his own. That's true.
Yeah.
But this next shot, actually, it's the next one after this. Like I said, I'm kind of working in the blind here, but this is actually an interesting shot of Chris, and also you can see the dome that Robert is working on to make the big sphere.
Yep.
And how the intense look on Christopher's face right now.
It's always intense.
Yeah, when does he not have an intense?
Yeah. But the previous slide, I forgot to mention, this is when he's having the conversation with Will about his talent is to cheer on Robert as he does push-ups.
Right.
And he kept saying, remember, this is my talent.
Right.
Oh my
God. It was only for Robert. It wasn't for the others. It was just for
you and you alone. That I think is something he said.
That was hilarious.
Oh my God, this was so funny. And you could tell Will was like just trying to hold it in because he was laughing so hard. Okay, so this is the shot I was talking about, where this intense look, and this looks like an evil face, right? It's like, I am putting together my doomsday machine. But what I like about this is it's also a close-up of the backdrop too.
Yeah.
And you can see, how many bricks they had to put in there. And I wasn't sure about these gray bricks in the upper left corner, these light bluish gray bricks. Maybe Lewis, you might have some insight into that,
That
because
to me
it
would
looks
be,
like they were
where that comes out,
strategically
'cause they have the
placed.
mechanisms. That would be where they would come out to me. But
Ah,
we do
when they're
have
back to back.
We do have a
Yeah.
comment from Lewis. All the things were shared. For example, Ben designed the sun and moon rings, and Chris may have helped make all four.
okay. Now, Lewis, since you're in the chat, do you know what these light bluish gray bricks are in here that are in the corner for the backdrop? Was
I
that
think-
to,
I
you
think
know,
that's where our people come out, because that's
They connected to the front design.
Or
Yeah.
the
Okay.
bar that the acrobats went back and forth on.
ah, okay.
because that red part is just the front, and so
Because I'm
that's where they
looking
come
at
out.
this one, and you can see the shaping is the same here, and this you can see here in
Nina
this.
working.
I wish they would have spent more time on this, because it shows Nina putting the backdrop up, because all the other kind of
Right.
cuts from the show are all Sam running around doing the backdrop, but she was doing the backdrop too, right, for some of these.
So Lewis says he's not sure. Probably supports for the mechanisms.
Yeah.
Ah,
And this has been in Poppy's core quadrant that she's
Mhm.
working on. So, yeah, it seemed like there was a lot more cooperation, definitely. And
Yeah.
the show highlighted that too, whereas the other team had a little bit more difficulty with
it was
communication.
a little more chaotic on the other side. And the other thing I like about this shot is, I'm not sure if I can zoom in here. I'm scared to zoom in because I'm afraid it's going to, end the presentation. But just imagine you're zooming into the bottom right side, as you can see. And they talked about this. They had a quick conversation at the beginning of this. Is like, how tall do you need this so your mechanism will fit underneath? You
Yeah,
probably remember
yeah.
Ben saying that. And that he was explaining how tall it needed to be. So then that way they could measure and make sure that the arches would all match up, right?
Yeah.
But I do like this shot because it kind of gives you the exposed side, which is going to be covered when it lines up with the other builds.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is really great. I really love this shot. So thank you, Endemol Shine, for these photos. Here you go, Lewis. There's your intense teacher face with Alex. And this is where you're working on your high wire mechanism, which, by the way, was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant to
I
see
love
that.
their kind of cosmos background. You can see it there.
Yes.
When I watched for
Straight
me,
on, it was really, really impressive.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
cosmos background. And then once again, you can see that they have a little bit of mechanism on the bottom, so they had to make room for that. And that, once again, that little arch in the front, kind of making it cohesive as like a full 3-ring or 4-ring circus, right?
yeah, for me, I knew that to expect like the movement of the top, but when I saw the movement of the top and the galaxy spinning behind, that was a wow factor for me. That was awesome.
I agree. It was pretty amazing. Also, when they were explaining and showing kind of the process where he would try a couple different ways to move the high wire, and then he said, "Yep, I'm gonna have to redo that." It's a lot of iteration, right? That goes on.
You could see that bowing right there. Yeah.
Mhm. It's amazing. Okay, so now we're moving on to Team
So
Cirque.
right
And-
before that, I'm gonna pop in with Lewis's thing. I'm probably
Okay.
the one who helped the rest the least because I was struggling with the different mechanics for all 10 hours.
Oh my gosh! So that's what he's staring at here. It's like, I got to get this mechanism to work.
And it was beautiful, Lewis. That was
Yeah.
worth that 10 hours.
We have a better shot of the full complete
Okay.
build later, but these are the shots that I got from Endemol Shine. So, and this is Emily and Kelly working on their flying trapeze kind of mechanism here, and you can see the back. This is what they're having a conversation about, where they have so many bricks of this dark
Kelly.
blue.
So
I'm sorry?
Kelly's
Kelly's in the
yeah.
chat. So did they have the high wire? They had the high wire going back and forth, and
No,
They-
high
they had
wire
the
was
acrobats.
Paul and Nalita.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
No, this
Kelly
was
and Emily.
flying. I
Yeah,
will
they
double
had
check
the
my
acrobats.
notes.
No, you're right, Naomi.
Here we go. There's my back of the envelope notes here.
Well done.
This is what you have on the Brickanista Broadcast Network. So no, I wrote Paula and Nolita had the high wire. Emily and Kelly had the flying, and then Allison and Melanie had the balancing, and then Aubrey and Ryan had the contortionist.
Yeah.
So their order was a little different than what they had for and like I said, we'll have more slides coming up.
I was a little surprised that the contortionist would end the act, because for me, I'm like, that's not where I would want to end a show. Would be but it's proved to be perfect for the story. Yep.
Yeah.
But what I was going to mention here is that what you heard, they were talking about the variety of plates before it transitions into the next row of bricks. So they have these dark blue bricks here. Then they have a variety of plates kind of in the middle. Then it segues into this other regular blue. So they had a variegated pattern, but it also had some, collaboration, but it wasn't as precise as I think the other team.
Yeah.
They're excited. And like I said, these are the promo photos that I got. So I don't have a lot of all the teams. Here's one where they're very serious working together.
And Kelly says, that's the back, so it doesn't look so great.
Yeah, and this is where they're, I guess, consulting with Allison and Melanie about, I guess, the backdrop and, how many bricks are supposed to be dark blue versus regular blue. And yeah, I do think it's really interesting that these mermaids you see in the middle, how they really got them to be cohesive and similar.
That was good.
Yeah. Because the whole story, I forgot to mention, the whole story was, as Will said, the reverse of the Little Mermaid.
No.
The human wants to become a mermaid instead of the mermaid wanting to become a human.
It was funny that Ryan was like, there's no red, but there's, I think, at least one or two that had red, but I think in one person's build. So I think it actually might have been Allison's build.
Yeah, I think it was hilarious, though, that in that one line that Will just said, oh, so you're reverse of the Little Mermaid. Oh, I should mention, we had a little intermission, is that we had a Lego Learn section where they talked about what can you do to create the illusion of, motion in your build.
And I found it interesting on this, too, that the contestants are actually running back and forth in the background.
Yes, I saw that, too. So they were filming it during the show.
Yeah. Previous seasons, I don't remember them. It seemed like it was more staged, offset.
Yeah, it seemed much more staged, but there is a section where you see Christopher running frantically to get apart, and then he runs back out of frame.
I like that. I thought it felt a little more integrated into the show.
Yeah, I agree. And here you'll see Amy talked about stacking bricks, translucent bricks, to make it appear that something's flying. And then she talked about a mechanism to appear that somebody's doing a slam dunk. And what I really loved was the tensegrity model, which they never said the word tensegrity, by the way. I don't know if it's patented or trademarked or something. But
it's science, so I don't think so.
Well, that's why I don't understand. Why didn't he just say tensegrity? Right?
Too big for the audience.
Too big, too much higher level. Yeah. Just like they didn't say bionicle when Christopher and Robert made that amazing bionicle.
Right.
That was disappointing. But anyway, I really loved the tensegrity display that they put in there.
Naomi, can you go back one slide for me a second?
Sure.
There is Lewis says, Kelly modeling in this shot, foreshadowing, ?
She's modeling.
Well, did you see that that stance, that very strong pose?
Well, Kelly's a pretty shy person, so I don't see her really strutting.
I've been in these there's been some good shots. There have been some great shots from Kelly. So oh yeah, Kelly's a really very photogenic, and
attractive woman. So I know they spent a lot of time on whenever they put full face shots on somebody that they want to bring your attention to them, right?
Yeah. Also,
And they
Kelly
spent a lot of time on Emily and Kelly this episode, which we forgot to mention. Emily and Kelly had some time with Will doing some like cheer moves, right?
Yes.
Dance
Like Kelly
moves.
says, just looking judge. Oh, and then she says judgy.
She's looking judgy.
Everyone's work.
Right. Everybody else is working, and Kelly's just like, I'm not sure about this.
So we got Emily being bossy and Kelly being judgy.
Well, Emily showed her, her moves on the dance floor too. So that was fun. Okay, so we're back to Lego Learn, and going back to the tensegrity model is that I was really, really happy that they did this because I think tensegrity models, it's a fun thing to do, but a lot of people are not aware of them. So just the fact that they even did a tensegrity model here, even though they didn't say it, was still really, really fun to see.
I'm kind of afraid to try it. I've never done it.
What?
It's pretty good.
Try one. Jason Alleman has a really good model that he posts publicly.
Well, and if you want to just do the tease, because that's easier just to try to see if you want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fun. I like them, and I think that it goes back to just you get a lot of enjoyment out of seeing something balanced like that.
Uh-huh.
And I think here's for me for when it comes to Lego or the Lego Learn they have for the show, it's definitely still very kid geared because like sometimes I would have liked to have seen a little bit more like higher level. Like we're looking at like 101s. I would like to see a 102 or 103 level.
Oh, this is more like level 1.
Yeah.
Not even 101. Right?
True.
Stack some translucent bricks.
Right.
Yeah.
We can do that.
Yeah.
Which I always find distracting. The stacks of tall bricks when people like put them underneath spaceships or things like that. When I did one of my builds, I tried to put the stick behind, a clear stick behind. So when looking from the front, you don't see the support.
I agree.
Yeah.
It is distracting, but if you don't have a big supply, you got to use what you have. All right. So after the interlude, this is now where they put together the judging part of the show, and you can see.
We got right back. Trick or treaters.
Speaking of judging,
that's the dog.
That's the dog who's judging this. One thing I didn't notice until I was putting this PowerPoint together is that the backdrop for this was blue, but the other team, the backdrop is like purple or pink. So Team Soleil had the blue backdrop, which I think worked against them because you can't really see the model as well, right? Because it's all blue.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anybody told them, hey, by the way, you're going to have a blue backdrop when we put it on display. Would have been nice to know that ahead of time because then, they could have made it pop a little more.
Yeah.
But it does show you.
Can we go back before the judging and talk about the choice that Lewis made for who he would take with him to if they were to win? I love that nod to Alyssa Milano. Like she's one of my faves, and like good choice, Lewis.
Well, we should mention that the prize for the winning team is going to be a trip to Las Vegas with tickets to go see a Cirque du Soleil show of your choice. And they asked Alex and Lewis, who would you bring to the and of course Alex says, well, of course my wife, right? If he didn't say his wife, then
safe.
Of course the wife would say, excuse me, what?
Well, right. I didn't realize it was. I thought it was all the teams. I thought it was a super team would go. I didn't realize that was
no, just one of the sub teams was going to win the tickets.
Yeah.
So, but going back to the cohesive build itself, you can see the arches are uniform. Yeah. The ring going around, with the sun and the moon, different. Little logos going around each one. It was just beautiful to see. And I was just sad that it had a blue backdrop because you really just could not see it. right, from a distance that well.
You mean the backdrop that the show put on?
Right.
Or-
So you see the tent. The
I know.
tent
Yeah,
is blue
yeah,
here,
yeah.
and the backdrop is blue.
Yeah.
I think when we see the future one of team, in fact, we'll just go real quick and see the backdrop here is pink,
Oh,
but they also have a blue backdrop.
yeah.
So both teams, I think this team benefited from the fact that they didn't have an all blue backdrop. They had, the variegated
yeah.
colors, so it popped a little more. Yeah.
Well,
But
I
anyway,
don't know if the judges take that into consideration though either. I think that's more for TV.
Yeah,
I think it
Yeah.
affected us more as viewers than the judges.
agreed.
yeah, well, definitely. I think the judges definitely could see it, but I think also if you're building for television, it's probably worthwhile to say, what's the backdrop going to be for this? So then that way you can pivot.
Well, but also to me, it also looks like this is a light effect. It wasn't actually a color. It looks like this is a light effect because I think they just added like a pink light to it because I think the other one was just white. So if you add a pink, it just changed it.
Oh,
Yeah,
I see
right.
what you're saying.
So
They
if you
added
did
pink
put a red
light
light.
to this.
Interesting.
Yep. Add a red light, it's
Possibly.
pink.
Anybody know, Lewis, or anybody who was on set?
Is the dress
Okay,
blue or white?
Yes, is it a blue dress or a white dress? I
So
think
Kelly
it's
says-
actually a different backdrop just because I don't know, maybe you're right. Maybe it's the color.
So Kelly
Maybe
says
it is just a pink light. Oh, you can tell right here. There's the pink light. There it is.
Yep.
You're
and
right.
Kelly says, I don't think we knew the colors of the backdrop going into the challenge.
Right.
And yes,
Yeah. See, if you knew the color of the backdrop, I think you might have changed.
and so Kelly says
decisions, right?
same tent. Yeah, Kelly says it was the same tent.
Okay, same tent, just lighted differently. Okay, cool. See, this is why it's great having contestants in the chat.
I will say, looking at this shot too, the uniformity of the four quadrants really stands out,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
kind of brings this one build cohesively together.
Right.
I'm definitely a merman fan too. So I really going in as soon as they talked about a mermaid story, I was like, oh, I'm sold. That's my team.
Oh, okay.
And now seeing the kind of cohesive final of this all together, which we're looking at it a little bit longer. Although when you showed the mermaid one, they did have a unified front of their stage as well.
Yeah, they did.
But for me, this just kind of speaks as a cohesive piece. I wouldn't mind seeing it on a rotation type of base on a
Or
museum.
from above.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be awesome to see
One
it
thing I
in a
would have maybe tried to
rotating
do
base.
is put a big moon and a big sun in the center above all four. Which is
Yes.
Yeah.
have some
Yeah.
kind of
That would
motorized
be
rotation.
amazing.
So that's just hindsight.
So here's the beauty shots that we
Nice.
got of, and normally we would put the cartoon shot first and we'd say this is what they had envisioned and this is what they did. But this is a better close-up shot. You can see how the moon and the sun was done on the front.
Yeah.
And then of course the contortionist. This was a little hard for me to interpret when they were talking about this is a contortionist scene.
Yeah.
So I would say, and this is, I think Sam was even saying that if their team was on the bottom, he thought they were going to go home, right?
Yeah.
Because this wasn't very clear.
And
I thought it was cool though. You're right. The back,
It would've been-
the back and the front, they all kind of aligned up.
And
Yeah,
then
it
when it
would've been-
rotated on the other side was the moon.
Mhm.
Yeah, because you see
Yeah.
in front the blue and the red for the sun and the moon. Yeah, but
And
it was a
something-
little hard. It was a little lost with so many characters.
Yeah. There's
so many
so many characters there. And the other thing that they didn't really spend much time on, and you kind of saw in the preliminary shots, is they had these open studs on the outside for these colors, which I thought was really clever to give it some dimension and also some another pop of color. And they didn't talk about that on the show. So it's nice to see it with, the different stages of the build.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I did like this. And then we segue into Christopher and Robert, which is a flying act.
So before I remembered who is what, because of the spheres and knowing that Ben and Poppy had been doing the spheres almost the entire time, I thought this was theirs until I'm like, oh wait, no.
Yeah. Well, this is why when I was watching the show, I was taking notes on my envelope, my my fancy envelope here. That it was interesting also how they described this and the teams, the way they described each one. We forgot to mention that they had a team spokesperson. So Christopher was the spokesperson, and even
I'm
when
shocked.
he was just talking about his own, but he was a really good spokesperson to kind of lead the team into how they're displaying their particular.
I love the progression of like there was just 2 stomps and then it was then the entire team.
I think I'll have to ask Lewis. Did you remember to stomp, or were you supposed to stomp in progression, where you had 2 people stomping, then 3 people stomping?
I think no. I think the first time when they did the first act, I don't think that they were all cued in, and then the rest they were cued in, so they actually did it.
Yeah,
all together.
I think so. That's kind of how I think if you look closely, they're kind of looking at each other like, oh, shoot, we were supposed to stomp, weren't we?
I plead the fifth is what Lewis says.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, if you look at the facial expressions right after that first stomp,
Yep.
you can kind of see, I think Lewis is looking at Alex like, oh, we were supposed to stomp, weren't we?
Yep.
Your feet kind of twitched.
Yeah.
It's okay. Your team came together. It was all good.
Yep.
But it was
Yep.
fun. It was fun to see that.
Yeah.
And then you had Poppy and Ben, the balancing act. And this was one of my favorite builds, just looking at this. It just, the composition, the color, it's balanced, not only, for the act, but the use of the color is just so beautiful.
Yeah.
Just loved it.
Yeah.
Any other comments on this before I go to the next one?
Nope. But I do have a question kind of to the chat. So they because we only saw both teams having 2 good critiques, and I know that there was a Lewis comment that said we received all good critiques. So I'm wondering if I'm assuming there was critiques that we didn't get in the edit. And then so Kelly says, I have to manage trick-or-treaters. Have a good night, everyone. Hi, Kelly.
Hey, Kelly. We'll send the dog over.
Yeah, I think too, the other interesting story that came out of this was the synchronized swimming piece and how it's a part of the family. And the dad joke that Poppy made, where he said, the only talent I have is I can stick my tongue out and touch my nose.
Yeah.
Right?
That was
Which
funny.
was absolutely hilarious. Yeah, but it was interesting too, just having synchronized swimming as a part of their family, and they brought it into this build too.
Yeah, right. And then Rick J says, ahoy, ahoy.
Oh, Rick J!
I just want to say happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
No
Hey, Mo.
spoilers.
Thanks for dropping in. Okay, and now we have Lewis and Alex's High Wire Act, which was absolutely phenomenal.
Love the mechanics of this.
I just love this build.
I love the waves. The only thing, and I'm wondering if this is because of the brick available. The only thing I didn't like about it was that we saw that gray bar. So I'm wondering if the color didn't, because I know that I saw Lewis originally working with that black. So I'm wondering if he tried black and the bricks just didn't allow for it. Because that only that bar going right across the solar system kind of is a little distracting. It's the only thing I didn't like.
Well, he's in the chat. So, Lewis, I see your point, but it wasn't that distracting for me.
No.
To me, it was almost like you wanted it to be highlighted because that's the act you want your eye to focus on, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't find it a problem.
That little touch to make it a little higher, but it was amazing. I loved it. Yeah,
I love it. And I didn't notice the waves as much until I started building this slide deck.
Yeah.
And because I think the camera angle had it more focused on the spinning wheel in the back.
Yeah.
So this one had 2 power functions, maybe 3. I think I can't remember if the waves moved up and down. Did the waves move up and down as well?
I don't
Okay.
recall that.
No, those I don't think they moved.
Those
But we
were
do have a
static?
comment. We do have Lewis. I was writing the same rewatching it. I can't remember. I know it went through several iterations, and I must have had a reason because black was an obvious choice.
Well, to me, it wasn't as distracting because you wanted your eye to go there. So
Yeah.
if you want to use that as your answer, feel free. But since Lewis, you're answering, did you have 3 mechanisms or 2? Because I couldn't remember if the waves were moving up and down as well.
Because that looks brick. They look brick built, so I don't think they moved.
Okay.
But we'll let Lewis answer as we go along.
Right. But these beauty shots are nice. So thank you again, Endemol Shine, for sending those to us. So we could use them, because otherwise we wouldn't have a PowerPoint presentation.
And Lewis responds 2 functions. Yeah. So we have
2
the
functions. Okay. The spinning wheel and then the up and down mechanism for the high wire act. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
And I love this joke from Debo. If the bar was darker, the figures might miss their footing and fall off. Even though they're on their bellies. It's on their bellies.
Right. Oh my God, that's hilarious. Debo, you always come through with witty comments. Okay, so now we're at Team Cirque. And going back to your earlier point, it would have been nice if this was on a rotating mechanism, so you could see all 4 acts as they're coming around. And I agree. I was surprised that Contortionist was the last one too, but it ended up working out really well. So here's the first, which was Paul and Nolita's high wire act.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say in this picture, you can't see it as well, but there's that wire that I love because that piece that you're talking about, like, where are they? What's it on? And I love that they put that wire in there.
Yeah. Yeah. The wire was really well done. The use of the train track was a brilliant execution.
The hard part for me is that they never explained, which of course they don't usually, but how they slowed it down. Because we saw that piece where it was going too fast. So I wonder how they slowed it. Because usually I would say more gears, but I don't know on a train how that worked.
Yeah, having to gear it down. Well, we did have Paul and Nolita last week. But I had an emergency situation, so unfortunately I couldn't be there. But thank you, Paul and Nolita and PT, for putting on a good show.
And there's your redheaded mermaid.
Yep.
Yes, I was just going to say the redheaded mermaid, and you have several of them in this shot.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, so it was Paul and Nolita. So it wasn't Allison. It was Paul and Nolita. Okay.
This is Paul and Nolita.
Yeah.
Because this is Team Cirque. And the other thing I like, which is kind of subtle in this build compared to some of the others, is the how they have like an open back, and then they have that middle pier that comes through.
Yeah.
And it's just so well balanced with all the sea life and the all of the flowers and the use of, it looks like flex tube. It looks like they used a lot of flex tube for this.
And they also have a bit of transition between each color on the backdrop that kind of creates like a ripple water effect. That's really nice.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. Looks absolutely beautiful. And I also am curious how this mermaid is floating up here. I think it's a side, you were talking about earlier, was one of those side bars like they use for stop motion.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, just gorgeous. And here we have the Allison and Melanie balancing act. And once again, you were talking about the cohesiveness of the base, where they use that same kind of pattern on the bottom.
Yeah, I like the bright colors for the coral and the base deck there.
I think theirs was unique, and they had the like red horns coming out from the coral. There was the unique on that front end.
Yeah. I also liked
stage lights.
The lights, exactly. The lights are amazing. It's kind of like, yes, you are watching a circus act here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. I absolutely love this. And I think too, one of the interviews, there's a guy, Mike, with Talk Bricks, I think, and he always asks each contestant team, what's your superpower?
Yep.
And in this case, with Allison and Melanie, they talked about color and music.
Yeah. And they do it really well.
Yeah, they
It's
do.
amazing.
I like the transition of the backdrop between
Mhm.
dark color and as it gets lighter. It's not just,
Yeah.
All
And the thing we don't see as much in the pictures or in the edit, and that they were talking about on Talk Brickmasters, was the translucent. They put in the translucent blues in there too.
Mhm.
So we can't see it as much, but if you saw it through the light, because as we know, as convention goers and stuff, when you look at it,
Right.
and you see all the colors, it's really cool.
In this little part in the middle here, with this base, that
Mhm.
little bit of change right here, it's subtle, but it's really powerful. And I think the trans that you're talking about is right around here.
Yeah.
Using the trans blue studs and yeah.
I also think
the transparent ones that are underneath their backsides that are holding them up.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned earlier that sometimes when you use transparents like that vertically, they kind of draw the eye, but in this one with that blue background behind it, it actually is hidden better.
Yeah.
Well, and just like you said, they put the tail down right in front of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it did kind of they masked it a little bit. I love that.
Yeah, and
I agree.
It's not as obvious as that learning Lego Learn that they have with those two solid
Right.
I would call them windows, but
those 1x2x5 pillars that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, this is
Now,
really
one thing I do like about those pieces is that you can fill them on the interior with other dots and other things, and that makes it a lot of fun.
Well, that's what I loved this year. I was out on the wall, and they had the 1x2x5s, and then also the bones. And I was telling people, you can fill it up with bones so it looks like a graveyard or like oh yeah, they loved it.
And people have been doing cheese wedges, I think, fit inside there to make various stained glass windows.
Yes, it's really a nice part that's underutilized, I think.
Yep.
And now, did everybody have the fish? Oh yeah, they did. So on their base around the bottom, they all have the little blue fish in there.
Yep.
I just realized I put this, I think, in the wrong order because this should have been the second one. Yeah, I put this in the wrong order. This should have been the second one, and then Allison and Melanie. So my apologies, and excuse me a moment. I just knocked over my tea, so I just want to make sure my laptop doesn't get wet.
Oh yeah, no.
Naomi, all the
That'll end the broadcast really fast. Thankfully, I have a napkin here and my now tea-soaked envelope.
That envelope comes in handy.
It came in handy for wiping up this tea. But anyway, I'm so sorry I'm tilting my laptop, but trust me, you want me to tilt this or we will not have a broadcast in a few minutes. So
for this shot, I loved like both that piece of the details of the sandcastle in the background, which we don't always put those things in, or the castle in the background. And then also that dock. I don't know if it's a dock or a boat. I think it might be the boat.
Sorry if I'm distracted, but yes, I agree. This whole thing
Naomi,
about
you have unclick because you have it as kind of covering the screen.
Sorry.
There we go. Thank you.
So is that
like I said, I'm managing a crisis right now.
And
I just put a book underneath this, so just in case there's another puddle here, that it's another, trying to do this. Sorry, folks. This is live.
What were you saying, Brad?
Well, they've also got stage lights.
Yes.
On the beams in the corner, and their coral is consistent and different from the other areas and stages as well, which I kind of like. It kind of sets us aside as a different part of the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
Yes, those is it Fresnel lights? They look like Fresnel lights that they've actually, with the little blinders that they have on the side.
Yep.
Yeah, I really love too that the whole idea of trying to show that you have the earth kind of above the water, and then you have the underwater world, and caught between two worlds. Which way do we go? And then she makes a decision. Yes, I'm going to do this. Right.
Yeah. And I also love that.
Go ahead, Greg.
I love that piece of having the light. So it actually, because we reminding us that this is still, we are showing underwater world, but we're still a circus. This is
It's a show. Yeah.
Right.
It's a show. And I think there was an outtake where they talked about, Emily had talked about going to a Cirque du Soleil show where it was partially in the water and partially out of the water, which I think she was talking about the show, the O show.
Oh, yeah.
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 Oh my God, that's an amazing show. I absolutely loved it. Okay. And then the last team was the Contortionist Act, where we have Aubrey and Ryan, and they show the mermaid in her full form. And you can see that there's several mermaids here, and it's not reflected in this photo, but there's all kinds of motion going on. You have the mermaid kind of oscillating back and forth.
Yeah.
You have the mermaids on the bottom also moving. You have
Spinning
the
around,
plants moving up and down.
And
It was-
stingrays. Yeah, both stingrays. Yeah.
And the seaweed was going up and down.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
I thought it was really clever.
very
to use
dynamic.
a natural mermaid motion of the tail kind of curled back like that for contortion, because
Yeah.
it's not contortion for mermaids, it is for humans. But you know, it's repeated in the two down below as well, and it's still so simple. If you look at this, it's
Right.
a lot of motion. The build's quite simple with just the right use of color and the right use of placement to really convey a lot. And I think they really built it up that Aubrey and Ryan were struggling, but they pulled it out of the hat for sure.
What I love that, like, they had so much movement that were not the same. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4 different movements.
Yeah.
Like 4 completely different, distinctly different movements. That was
and when
awesome.
they had the lid off the bottom, you could really tell that Ryan was trying to connect them all through basic. I think they might have had 2 motors to get all that motion out of.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he even said more than 2. I think he even said 3 or 4 motors.
Oh, okay.
To get this going. I will say that the one thing that distinguishes this over some of the others is that they didn't really show it as a stage. Like the other ones, you saw, lights, and we just talked about Emily and Kelly's, that they had the stage big Fresnel lights. This one doesn't have that, so it's not really clear if this is a show that we're watching or if it's a mock of some mermaids in a
And Devo brings in saying that this one has the blue crystals instead of the fish on the border.
Right.
So it's slight difference.
Yeah.
Good
But
point.
Also having the lack of a frame around this one, you would have seen the adjacent pieces with those on them. So you still wouldn't have been isolated from the whole concept of a stage.
True.
Yep.
Very true. And the other thing that is still driving me crazy is that what are these open studs up here? These open studs on this part over here. What are those?
They're bubbles.
They're bubbles?
They could, yeah.
I'm not buying it. I'm
They're-
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm
I'll
just
tell you
like,
what.
cover those up or put
They're one of
something
the-
on there. Put a sign on there. Do something. I don't know.
I'll ask them in the group chat we have what those were.
Well, Lewis says Albert Grant went a little bit rogue.
They did go a little rogue, right? Okay. Okay. I'm not imagining this.
I think that's.
Oh, go ahead.
I think that's about the blue crystal idea, not the open studs. I think that was about
I think this is the only one that has seaweed also. I really like the look of the seaweed.
Yeah, the seaweed.
The others were coral.
I think.
When I think they instead of coral they did seaweed. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, they
Right,
didn't have.
but
I don't see the
also
coral in there.
Wasn't there also seaweed in Paul and Nolita's? I'm just going to go back real quick. I think Paul and Nolita had some seaweed there.
Might have,
Yeah, not the green that they had, but yeah.
Yeah, they had the seaweed there. But going back to Debo's point, actually, the crystals are here on Paul and Nolita's too.
So they might have all.
So I think maybe it was Allison and Melanie that went rogue because they have fishes here. No, fishes. So it was like 2 groups had fishes and 2 groups had the crystals.
Yeah.
Okay. And like I said, I'm sorry, I put the order wrong. The order should have been the flying and then Allison and Melanie with the balancing act before they went to the contortionist. But going back to the coral, I mean, you can see that there's some tying elements here with the coral at the bottom as well as at the top. And we have some coral here as well. And then with the last act, we have a little bit of coral, but more seaweed than coral. And I like the little manta ray here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that guy on the left side too.
Yep.
Oh,
that's
right.
And that for me, like I was very happy with this one, like because I love balance, and so they had 2 manta rays on both sides. They had them perfectly in the middle, and the seaweed like moving together. So that was like ooh.
Symmetry.
Yeah.
Except this is not symmetrical up here.
Well, how you turn it.
You have to let it go, Naomi.
What is with the open studs? Sorry.
That's hilarious.
I'm sure Aubrey and Ryan, if they're watching this, I loved your build. Don't get me wrong. I love the build, but it's almost like it's
inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, we just want to know, what was that? Did you run out of pieces, or did you was it intentional? Okay, moving right along. What are the results? What happened? For those of you who have not seen the episode yet, spoiler alert. So here it is. We have Will kind of milking it, saying we have this is the first time in LEGOmaster history.
I don't think he's saying that yet.
What's that?
I said I think he's just cheesing right now. I don't think he's
that came a bit later.
Oh, okay. Well, no one is going home.
Okay. Brad's got a story. So, well, not really, but for two things. One, someone today texted me and said, well, if no one was going home, that should have been on the first episode with you guys. So we did not say that. Thank you, friend. But I immediately turned to Mike and I'm like, I don't think they printed that sign that day.
Nope.
So unless they have an on-demand printer and came up with a sign after the judges deliberated,
it was
I feel
it was intentional,
planned, and that's okay. But
to me, as soon as they told Sam and Nina to put that golden brick away, I'm like, there's no gun going home.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is this reminds me of the NASCAR episode from season 3,
right?
Where nobody went home from that either.
Yep.
Whenever they have a big super team or multiple teams combined together, it seems like nobody goes home. Well, but I think if you watch the episode closely, that performer has that scroll in their hand before the judging takes place.
So I actually went back and looked last night. I watched this episode again last night to find out you don't see them. You do not see them until the moment they actually want to show them. So they did a really good camera job, so we didn't see them.
Okay.
And to go back actually to season one, we had a team challenge that they did have someone go home for.
Oh, okay. Well, they said it was the first time in LEGO history. Now, do we believe them or not?
Well, they called it a tie, and that would be the first.
That was that would be first.
But also one thing that you kind of skipped over, Naomi, is that Poppy was ill for the second half of the episode.
Yeah.
So it could have been a factor that they also didn't want to send a team home because of illness, and they wanted to have fair footing for everybody as well.
Very true. And you kind of see that in this slide with Nina and I think Nina and Ben working together. That might have been the time where Ben started getting or Poppy started getting sick.
And when they had them on the risers right away, I said to Mike, "Ooh, Poppy's missing," because they showed the two teams and Poppy wasn't there.
Yeah.
So then the big question is, well, we know there was a set 10 episodes filmed. So are 4 teams going on to the final, or will there be 2 teams sent home one of the next episodes? Because if they do 1 team per episode, then that'll be 4 to the final.
Right. Yeah. And they may do 2 episodes back to back too. That's happened before. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, nobody's going home. I like the look on the performer's face. Isn't that just precious?
He kind of looks like he's doing it out the side of his mouth there.
Okay. And the winners of the challenge who got the tickets to go to Vegas were Aubrey and Ryan. And normally I would have the photo of them accepting the, tickets and all of that, but this is the best I could do.
It worked.
But they look pretty happy here too. But it was very cute that Aubrey was crying and just happy tears.
Yeah.
It was fun.
And she was apologizing for crying. It went on quite a bit that they elaborated on her comments about it. She's like, "No, I'm happy. I'm just crying."
Yeah. Very sweet.
Oh, and Naomi, not to point it out, but there's look at the back of their build there.
I noticed that. I was trying to be quiet about it. I was trying to hold myself back, but you had to bring it up.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes,
well,
you had to bring it up. It probably was they were running low on bricks, right?
But I think this might just be the place in the back, because sometimes we know how as builders we got to have this built up, because on the front side you didn't see that unless it was just behind the mermaid.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let's see, baby. Let's look at that. Do you see those bricks?
But look at their wall is 2 bricks thick, or 4.
Yeah.
Their wall is thicker.
They probably could have hit it.
Yep.
Yeah.
They could have put red on the back and you would never have known.
I would have never known. But now that you've mentioned it, I can't get it out of my head. Thanks.
So we might have to ask. We'll ask in the chat with the
We'll have to ask.
Yeah. Naomi has some burning questions about it.
I've got to know.
Anything else we should ask them?
No, I think we'll have to say that their contortionist act was beautiful, and it really deserved all the accolades. So
I did find it interesting in how in the edit that that is the first 2 teams the only 2 comments they gave. You see kind of like, yay, good job in this, and then you get a look to Paul and Melita saying they kind of that look of like, oh crap, ours going to be that good. And then you had with Lewis and Alex, and you had how their act was really good. Oh no, and sorry, the other way around. But then you had Sam and Nita, and they were talking about their contortionist act. And then you see Robbie and Ryan's face just like, ugh.
Yeah, it was interesting that we were thinking they were going to compare contortionist act to contortionist act and high wire act to high wire act rather than the whole composed piece. Yeah. So I think it was just interesting that story really was key on this. The story of, and I think there was one comment, I can't remember who said it, about why did we pick the sun and the moon rather than the sun and the earth? Because the earth is far more interesting.
That was Robert, because he was building that orange sun, and he wanted the earth because it would be more beautiful. More
beautiful, right. It was kind of like, why did we pick the sun?
Well, I like the color. They had variation to their sun and moon orbs too, which was really good.
Yeah.
They added some of that color variation, the different yellows and oranges.
Yep.
I have to say, I know a lot of times the builds that are made are discarded or taken apart for the brick pit to be reused. These both I would love to see on display somewhere with the teams did well, and to be able to spend more time diving into each of these builds. And
it would be nice.
Yeah, this would be a great one for a Legoland.
Yeah.
Or a convention, right? If they could bring these to a convention if this is a collab. This is what we saw. We saw a collab live. 10-hour collab. Do it. And
the edits just don't do it justice. Now that we're seeing more detail with the photos, I really, I wish we could have spent more time on, the TV to show off the work these guys did.
Yeah.
Well, that's the end of my slide deck. And I wanted to say thanks again for taking the time to be here on the show. I do have to ask this question. The matching shirts, was that your idea or was that the network?
So I think we can say it was definitely suggested in our audition that we wear matching shirts just to kind of tell us apart with the teams. I mean, even though we were on the same video audition, Mike and I frequently wear matching red buffalo plaid. And
Oh.
we actually,
And we got married.
yeah, we were married
wearing
and
the same
matching
shirt.
buffalo plaid.
Yeah.
But I do tend to be
Okay.
a little more of the bright, festive, funny Prince, and he's a little more of he's not wearing it now, but a little more casual, business casual, reserved Prince. So with our audition, they said that they really liked the way that we looked in matching stuff for the audition. So they threw that to wardrobe as our look. And Chris and Jordan were supposed to be the plaid bros. So they'd already kind of given plaid to another team, so we didn't get
Oh.
plaid. So those shirts they bought for us. The other shirts that we brought for our wardrobe were ones that we went out and got more matchy stuff. So now
somewhat similar.
very similar. In
Yeah.
fact, we got like 2 weeks before we got word that we were cast, I'd actually gone out and bought a bunch of plaid for us. Anyway, but yeah, so it was, we don't normally wear like what you call it, Tommy Bahama.
Yeah,
White
like
shirt.
Hawaiian shirts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we actually do like the shirts the show got for us for that episode, and we tried to get them in a little larger size afterward, and it was seasonally out of production at Old Navy.
Oh,
So we still have them. We have to lose a little weight to really fit in them properly.
Cut out the cupcakes.
take them to a good tailor.
It's maybe,
Yeah.
maybe.
Mhm.
Or find them on
Yeah.
eBay, maybe. But yeah, no, we don't normally match unless it's wintertime and red plaid.
Well,
Yep.
we loved your look. We loved seeing you on the show.
It was sharp.
You've
It
given Bear Shack a whole new name.
there you go.
And what's
Mike-
next for you? What are your plans? What do you, now that you've been on the show? I know you've done the a couple of conventions because I had a chance to meet both of you at BrickCon, as well as I think Grant was there too, right? Or no, you were saw them at another show, I think.
No, I saw Brad at Brick Slopes, and then I saw both of them in BrickCon. Yep.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking to possibly rebuild my Everyone is Awesome from BrickCon. To make it a
Yes.
little more stable to transport it. I've been
A little more
redesigning
stable.
a lot more stable. I've been trying to
So
redesign
that we
it in the
don't-
studio. What's that?
So that we don't have the pulling out of the van conversation again.
Yeah. Grant helped us move it. I will say wrapping it over the top with saran wrap definitely helped.
Yeah.
And then I saran wrapped it to a headrest in the car on the way home.
You know,
Yeah, I think we're looking at making it double shut. Yeah, Debo. There's that for life. I'm looking to make it double thick on the vertical supports. But I over-engineered it in studio, and it's like $600 a level for each of those things. So I need to
Wow.
go back to the drawing board and maybe not use as much Technic. But we'll see. We do have a couple
It's
conventions.
a
on
beautiful
our lineup.
build.
Thank you.
Amazing.
I pulled it back
The
out
kids loved
for the premiere shows or premiere viewing that we did with the kids, the families here. Oh, you
We
got
have
it.
your signatures too.
Nice.
There's Mike right there. Now, do you try to sign the same place whenever you have a poster?
It depends on who we're
I
with
think
and
that
where
was
they're
the
signing.
And
first-
then there's you, Brad.
We started signing. Yeah, now when we sign things, it's play well. Brad does play well in his name.
Play well.
And Mike.
And I had to save this because my movers had apparently discarded this by mistake because I found it in the hallway. It was face down, and I looked at it. I go, "That's my poster!" Like,
We would have gotten another one.
Yeah.
well, I want the original, so I
Well, we
saved
just found,
it.
ours that we had. I think it was at BrickCon where all the attendees that were there signed it. So we've got ours too.
Nice, really nice.
But yeah, we've got tickets for BrickCan in the spring.
Oh, that's
I
right.
think we're going to plan Brick Slopes again, BrickCon for sure. Maybe Brick World Chicago.
Cascade?
Oh yeah, Brick's Cascade. Yeah, that
You
that
got to
Brick
go to
World
Cascades.
Chicago.
That's our hood. That's
Yeah,
you
let's
know,
plan something. We'll be there.
Grant and I. You know, we're there.
I'll twist your arm.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be
Oh, no,
great
that's
to see you. I know you're in Bellingham, so it's not too far away to get
No,
down
never
to
heard that way.
Portland.
No.
Well, great. And Grant, what are your plans? What are you up to?
I had thought about what I was going to answer this, but I don't remember anymore. I didn't actually. So, just still building around. Yep.
Building around. Well, I will say you are probably my number one enabler because you send me photos all the time when you are at the Lego store. And the last one he sent me were panda heads. It's like, there's panda heads back at the Build a Minifig station. So I said, okay, I got to get down there. But then I had an issue come up. So I haven't been there, but I'm hoping to get there this week.
And I also picked them up for you. I got 15 for you. So
you did. Yes.
See, that's a good enabler.
I'm easy to shop for. Pandas and corgis, pretty much in Lego, you know? Brick Rodeo too. Oh yeah, that's right.
Yep.
That's right. Brick Rodeo. I have tickets for Brick Rodeo. I've signed up. So
yep, I'm planning on Brick Rodeo as well.
And Lewis is working on Brick Miami.
Oh,
ooh,
is that a new one?
Did you just invent that?
No, I didn't invent it, but we've been talking about how the southern east seaboard needs a convention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to live in Charlotte, and it was just like the closest thing was in Raleigh, where they have a brick show there. But that was before I became the Brickanista. It was a long time ago.
Lewis
Coming
says,
in 2029.
He's got to work up to it. He's got a lot going on.
Okay. Well, once again, thank you so much for being on the show. It's so great to chat with you. I hope we get a chance to meet in person again, maybe at Brick Can or Bricks Cascade, which would only be, what, 6 months from now? It's pretty soon.
Yeah.
It'd be great. And of course, Grant, as always, you're always so much fun to hang out with. And thank you for filling in while PT was on vacation. And if you're listening, by the way, to the Brickanista Broadcast Network, thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Please like and subscribe to the stream. I'm still crawling my way up to 500, and hopefully I'll get there before the end of the year. You can also send any snail mail, to P.O. Box. Here we go. P.O. Box 87232, Vancouver, Washington 98687. I think, Grant, did you want to pull up Lewis's comment?
Yeah, he's saying, thanks, guys. Have a great and spooky night.
Spooky night. Thank you. Really great. And also, if you haven't already, please follow Royal Bricks 503 Grant on Instagram. You can also follow Mike at Mike Tarrant on Instagram as well, Mike_Tarrant. And of course, there's Brickabrad, who also does those amazing digital sig figs. So if you're looking to get one, he's the person that you may want to chat with too. Yeah. Really lots of fun. This was a great episode. I really appreciate you jumping in. And thank you. You were so kind to say, we really want to be on an episode with you. Because you said you didn't want to be on the other episode because I was going to be out of town. And I was like, okay, how about Halloween? Do you want to do Halloween? It was like, yeah. And thank you again for those digital sig figs. I mean, there's just so much fun. And if we get one for PT, then I'll put that one for the intro for when we do a show. So PT's coming back. So don't worry, people. PT will be back next week. And thank you, everybody, also for all your kind words, while I was gone last week. I really appreciate that. And as they say, everybody on the Brickanista Broadcast Network, thank you so much. And may the clutch be with you. Happy Halloween. Bye.
Bye, everybody.